Welcome to Every Library Live, and thank you for joining us for Audiobook Week 2025, a celebration of the art, craft, and culture of storytelling through sound. All week long, we're featuring conversations with best-selling authors, award-winning narrators, and the creative professionals behind your favorite audiobooks. From gripping thrillers and historical fiction to immersive audio-first productions, this festival is your front row seat to the voices that bring books to life. Whether you're a lifelong audiobook fan or just getting started, we're glad you're here to explore how stories are made and why the format matters more than ever. Tonight, we have From Page to Pawprint, when we're featuring Amy Shojai on voicing stories that bark, purr, and thrill. I'm excited to have Amy here tonight. Amy, I would love for you to introduce yourself and everything about the books you write.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, Becky. I am so excited to be here. I am Amy Shojai. You did my last name perfectly. It took me 3 years to learn how to say it wrong, and it was so very good.
We're off to a great start.
Off to a great start.
Well, you know what? I have to say, in audiobooks, pronunciations matter a lot.
It does. It does. It's really difficult. If you get it wrong, then you have to go back and yes. So I am a lifetime book lover, and I began my writing career. I call myself the accidental pet writer because I was not going to be a writer. I was going to be on Broadway and perform and have all this fun. And I still love performing. I play music. I write music and perform cello and on stage and all of that. And it's great fun. But I married a gentleman, fell in love, and being away from home was going to be very difficult. And so I needed a creative outlet. And so I started writing about my passion, which happened to be pets. I was working as a vet tech at the time. And so a lot of the information in my books ended up from my personal experience stories. I started out writing articles, and that kind of segued into writing nonfiction pet care books. And with my agent at the time, wrote and sold probably a dozen or more pet care titles, from kitten care and puppy care to first aid to chicken soupicity. There were a couple of chicken soup books that I helped edit. And so it's kind of a wide-ranging thing, but I always loved fiction. Particularly, I loved thrillers. And I'd always wanted to write something a little, well, what I tell people is my first book, I wrote the book I'd always wanted to read and hadn't found. And basically that was a thrilling story that included and incorporated pets, because at the time there were a lot of the writers' conferences I went to said, well, yeah, you can have pets in there, but they can't have a viewpoint. They can't do this. That's kids' books. And I said, but I don't write for kids. This was not something for, and you are aware of that. My books are not necessarily for kids. The fiction is not. And so
these are not cozy. We're going to talk about that.
Not cozies at all. I am an animal behavior consultant professionally. So I kind of channel my inner pet and put myself in the animal's viewpoint in certain instances. And the first book in the series, the book that I'd always wanted to read, I had a little boy lost in a blizzard, and he was autistic, and he was lost with his service dog. And at the time, I had no clue how to write an autistic child's viewpoint. So when they were on stage, when they were on the page, I wrote it from the viewpoint of the service dog. And it was a revelation to me. It was so much fun because they don't talk. The animals do not talk in my books, but they have their own perspective, as I, as a professional, would imagine that the animals might act and react in their world. They experience their world through scent and sound that people are not able to experience. So for instance, a dog listening to their person who is talking on the phone, they hear both sides of the conversation. because of their acute hearing. They don't necessarily understand it.
That's a great point.
But it's a great way for myself as a writer to give some more insight and to give insight to the readers too. I've had people in some of my reviews that said, "Oh, that's why my dog does that," or "Cats can do that." So I'm reaching a whole new audience, people who probably would never pick up one of my pet care books, but they're learning about animal behavior. They're learning about care, first aid. What do you do if the dog's heart is stopped and you have to save him? That's the other thing. No pets die in my books.
Oh, this
Ever.
is extremely important to share with
Ever,
us.
ever.
Thank
Yes.
you. Well,
Yes.
let's talk a little bit about the specific series, because we're here to talk specifically about Play or Pay, which is the 8th book. I know it's like, bleh, I have to pay attention. 8th book in your September Days series of thrillers featuring September, who is an animal behaviorist, and some of the heroic pets that she's with. I want to talk about, I think I kind of know the answer now after you talked, but what was your inspiration for September? But also, we're in book 8, and when we do these thrillers or mysteries series, while the stories themselves are exciting, people don't follow the series if there isn't some growth in the character, right?
Oh,
Things
yeah.
they want to know. So, what was your inspiration for September? And talk to us about some of the scrapes she's gotten into and how
Oh,
she's
dear.
grown over those 8 books. And, let's feature this one, obviously, but we need to hear about all of it.
Yes. Well, Play or Pay, book number 8 is really a departure for September. With book 7, her world was turned upside down. She learned things about herself and her past that she didn't even know. And it came as a surprise to me. And I think some of the readers out there, and possibly a lot of the authors out there, will kind of understand how that can happen. Maybe I have certain things planned when I'm writing the next book, but they always surprise me.
Right,
Things
let's go
always
back
surprise
to the beginning and talk about where she started, and then we can talk about
Okay.
maybe how she changed.
Sure. Well, all of these books, because I'm located in North Texas, just north of Dallas. And so almost all of my books are set in Texas because I want to write what I know, and I make up places so I don't get in trouble getting something wrong, which is helpful. So it takes place. September has gone through a horrific experience, and she comes back home to Texas to heal. And she has PTSD from the experiences she's gone through. And in the first book, the readers don't really know what all has happened. I, as a writer, didn't really know exactly what had happened to her. That evolved. I thought I was writing a standalone book. And so here I had my character named September Day, which was her married name. She had been married to a police officer, Day, who was murdered. And so she's come back home to heal with her cat, Macy. And she has a Maine Coon cat, Macy, who is trained. And she locks herself into this house. She doesn't want to go out. She's scared of everything. She has a whole series of locks. She's really kind of shut in. And then here, her nephew, who is autistic, and she has been training a service dog for him, he gets lost in the snowstorm with Shadow, the German Shepherd. And her sister comes knocking. So, "You've got to help me. My son is missing." And there's all kinds of mayhem in the background of this, which is why she doesn't feel comfortable calling in the authorities. She's going to do it on her own. She's going to go out and save this little boy, and mayhem ensues. So,
As it does in a thriller.
As it does. And what was fun for me was not only does September have a character arc in this book, so does the dog Shadow, because Shadow has been partnered with a little autistic boy who does not like him, does not like dogs, doesn't know how to deal with dogs, has his own issues, and all Shadow wants is to be loved. And so here's this German Shepherd, 9-month-old. He's not even an adult dog yet. He's still in training. And he's doing everything he can to help this little boy because that's a good dog's job. Okay. And then September is fighting her own demons to try to save this little boy and to do what her sister wants her to do. So the end of the book, of course, everything, they survive, everything happened, but that's kind of the kickoff. That was going to be a standalone book. And then reviewers kept saying, but what happens next?
Where's September?
Why? Yeah, why is she so scared? What's going on?
Yeah.
So I listened to my reviewers and I said, well, yeah. Why? What happened? She came from Chicago, which I think is where you're at, and she was concert cellist. So she plays cello. I play cello. So again, writing what I know, and so I had to come up with, well, what is her backstory? So that led into the second story of kind of what her backstory is, and it continued that story. By the end of the first book, she has decided, well, the little boy is not a good fit for this dog, but she needs a support system.
Aww.
So she gets Shadow, and Shadow gets his wish. He goes from being unloved and not knowing what to do. He's now with his person. So that's kind of the character arc of the first book.
So we get from there and you keep going. So now you're 8 books in. How
Yeah.
has she grown over the
How
8
did that
books?
happen?
And how many animals has she? Is there a different like main character animal in each book, or is she with Shadow all the time?
Shadow is in every book.
Right.
Macy Cat is in every book. In fact, Macy later on gets some of his own viewpoint chapters because my readers were saying, hey, what about the cats? Come on.
I love it.
And so he has a story, actually, the second story, hide and seek, Macy goes missing. And so he's kind of at risk also. But I had something happen in the first book, and I've done it with every one since, that was just kind of a fun thing to do. I had a contest for my readers, Name That Hero Pet contest. And so my readers get to nominate their pet or a pet that they know to be one of the heroes in the books. And so usually I wait until I have at least, the first draft done, and I know who the extra pet characters are going to be, so I can describe what they have to do. Like I had one that was a service dog, a golden retriever service dog. And then it's fun because when the pet is chosen, I get to find out what their foibles are. For instance, in one of the books, this was a for real therapy dog, and her favorite thing was to go around the neighborhood and steal stuff off of the clotheslines and bring it back to her front porch, and just kind of collect stuffed toys and everything. So I put that in the book too.
That's great.
So every book has at least one, sometimes several hero pets that are real life pets that have been nominated by my readers, and then they get a copy of the book. They get their name and bragging rights in the back of the book, and it's just a lot of fun for everybody. So
what is the journey that we have September Day on, specifically in the 8th book, so people know? I mean, they should go back and read all of them, but give me the elevator pitch for the 8th.
Yeah, because I don't want to give away too much, because as I said, from the very first, she doesn't get along with her mother, with her family, or any of that, and she finds out much later, toward the end of book 7, what her real background is, what her real family is. And so book 8, she's having to deal with a family that she didn't know about, and they're not nice people. And so she's decided she has no choice. These are people that have given her no choice. And so book 8 is her coming to terms with being the head of this kind of a criminal enterprise, but she's going to make it right. And she's going to redress all the wrongs that her family have done over the years, perpetuating this crime enterprise. And so it's a real revelation to her. She's having to juggle that because her fiance is a policeman. and maybe he
Oh,
won't
found
understand.
love. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I love this. This is so much
So
fun.
so
I'm
it's
I
a lot of kind of yin
Yeah.
and yang there,
Now
and I
now
mean,
I'm
they
not
just
gonna
got together to try to get married, and, something happens there,
Yeah.
something always happens to break them apart. I have to keep that tension going.
That's what I was gonna say. So sounds like September's been through a lot. Um,
Oh, yeah.
you started only wanting to do one book. How many do you think you'll do now? I mean, you already have done
Ugh,
9 after you thought there'd be 1 or 8,
I
I
know
guess.
I'm about 3/4 of the way through book 9,
Yeah,
plotting and writing that. When September and Shadow stopped giving me stories,
that's a
um,
great answer.
I think that, I have no plans to I'm not gonna limit myself. Right now, I'm going back because there are different little bits and pieces from all of the books that, really, it was kind of like, you remember Murder, She Wrote, and I
Yeah.
loved the Murder, She Wrote thing, but you didn't want to be her friend, and you didn't want to live in Cabot Cove because you'd end up getting murdered and being a victim. There was, she was always causing trouble. And so I introduced some new characters along about book 4. And so there is a half sister that September didn't know about, or I think, no, she's a cousin. It's a cousin she didn't know about, who also has a trained dog and wants to be a policewoman. And so she's trained her dog to do that. So I have other characters that I can spin off.
Oh,
And the
yeah,
book
that'd
that
be
I'm writing,
fun.
yeah, the book that I'm writing right now, book number 9, features a lot about this cousin whose father is in prison wrongly accused. And so I'm going back and saying, okay, well, she said I was wrongly accused and all that. So how did that happen? And
Right.
that's going to fix some of those backstory questions that were left hanging. And once all of those are fixed, then we're going to have even more fun because it's going to open up the world. My editor, when I sent one of the, I think it was book 7, she said, "Oh my gosh, I didn't see that come. You can do anything now." It's
Oh, I
like,
love it. Well,
I love
that
it. I
leads
love
me
it.
to a little bit of it. We touched on this briefly, but and just briefly, most people think animals equals cozy, and that is not the case here. Yes, the animals don't die, but you've already kind of hinted at it. There are some heavy issues in these books.
Yes.
Do you it sounds like you have great fans, but do you ever get the occasional reader who thought they were getting a cozy?
Yeah, yeah, and I have to I try to be very careful about that, and not because I don't want people to be disappointed. If you love cozies, this may not be your cup of tea. If you love cozies with extra suspense
Haha,
or a
your
little
cup
bit
of
more,
tea. Sorry, that was a good pun.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Or if you like thrills, because I try almost all of the books take place within a 24 to 48-hour period. So it's a roller coaster. It starts and it
Yeah,
goes and it goes
that's
and it
like a
goes.
thriller, so people get it
Yeah,
right away. Yeah, I get
right.
that.
And it's not a lot of times who's doing, the difference between a cozy, a mystery is a puzzle. And so the reader's trying to figure it out before the writer actually reveals what's going on. It's kind of a contest. With a thriller, you may know who is doing the bad dastardly stuff, but you want to find out, is my main character, are they going to survive? How are they going to fix this and all that? And so it's like a ticking clock. And that's what I love to write. And I also write kind of it's multiple viewpoints. So I have gotten to the point now, whether it is in September's viewpoint or Shadow's viewpoint or whatever, I make that clear at the very beginning with a title on the chapter, and that helps people
Well,
also.
and we're running out of time, so let's talk about that when we talk about audiobooks. How do you
Okay.
translate these books to audiobooks? Because, we're here to celebrate the art of listening. It you're committed to having your books as an independent author in the audio format, which I
Yes.
appreciate because I love audio. So, what is it like bringing them to life, and how do you get those different characters to note it and all of that?
Yeah, well, as I said, in another life, I'm an actor, so
Yes.
I've done a voiceover work in the past, and it's not inexpensive to
Right.
produce an audiobook. And when I was researching it at first, and I thought, well, I can hire one of my colleagues, um, and pay them for one book, or I can invest that amount of money and build my own sound studio. And so I decided to do that. And you learn as you go. So the first book is not nearly as well produced as book 8.
Sure, of course.
And so you do learn. And I've learned also from that first book, specifically because of audiobooks, not to have as many characters on stage. You need a different voice for every character.
Yep.
And so with the first book, with Lost and Found, the very first book, I had a cast of not thousands, but I had a lot of different characters.
More, because you probably weren't thinking about an audiobook, right?
Right. I wasn't even thinking at that time. And so I've had to become more disciplined about that. It's great fun to read the dog character. Or if I'm doing September, I can just relax. I can just relax into kind of a Texas soft drawl, and that can be September. And she has a very low voice like I do and talks a little bit slower. And so as an independent author, I can do that myself, save that cost. I can go back and re-edit and everything. I have now, I hire somebody to do the mastering for me, but I do my own editing. And I've invested in some professional software, and try to hope that I've scheduled it when the trucks aren't running outside or the airplane's going over, because I have all the sound, I have the foam, everything all over, but it's still very, very sensitive. So, or my stomach doesn't gurgle. Take off all the jewelry.
Oh yeah, all the jewelry. And I hear that people use like an iPad for their audiobooks, so there's no page turning.
Yeah, the first books I did not, and then I had all the page turning stuff, and now I have an iPad, and it's much easier, and I can stop and correct. I do punch and roll, so I can stop and correct things right away if I misspeak or something. But it's a whole nother way of thinking of a book or presenting a book. It's a friend of mine, a professional actor, and he's one of my first readers. And before I was doing the audiobooks, he'd read it and he'd say, this reads an awful lot like radio. And I thought, well, when I finally started creating the audiobooks, it worked very well, because there is a lot of dialogue, which I love in a book anyway. I want a lot of dialogue. I try to make it very active voice to keep readers engaged. I try to make it fun. My main character, Shadow, the dog, is kind of funny.
Well, here, I want to ask you, you're talking about like the dialogue. So you've got to move back and forth between voices.
Yeah.
So do you have a master file for like September and Shadow, so that you have their voice? So can you just, before we get toward the end, can you give us a little as September and a little as Shadow?
Oh, sure. Well, I think I just did a little bit of September, just when she speaks with a Texas accent, and she speaks very slowly, because when you're from Chicago, you talk much more quickly. Yeah. And people from Texas, they can't always understand you when you're talking. So I have to slow it down, because I grew up in northern Indiana. So September talks a little slower, and she has a little bit of an accent. And then there may be other characters who have an even more of an accent, and they chew their words a little bit, or there's one character who has a really gravelly voice, and he talks a little like that. Yeah, and you have to be careful, because you don't want to hurt your voice either. What about Shadow? Is just Shadow is an innocent,
right?
And so I approach him. Everything is a wonder. That smelled wonderful. Why is that man staring at me? Why, he doesn't look away the way a polite dog would. That kind of. So I try to incorporate, what would he be thinking, kinds of things. Or, I really like playing the hide and seek game. It's almost as good as bacon. He loves bacon. So
I love this, Amy. Oh, this has been wonderful. And I love you sharing about how, you had to think about your books differently because of your commitment to having them in audio. And as a librarian, I want to tell
Yes.
you, we love authors who make their books available in audio because there's just so many reasons people choose audio. Some of
Oh,
it's
yes.
accessibility, but some of it is just pure pleasure. I love mysteries and thrillers and that kind of story in audio. For me, the characters, especially series, become my friends. So this
Oh,
is
yes.
great.
No, I try as an independent author to have them in every single kind of a format that I can. I just got them all out in large print because I had
Thank
some
you.
readers.
Thank
Yes, I had
you.
some readers that wanted. My dad is going to be 98 and can't see as well anymore. We have the same taste in reading. And so for him, for anybody like that, you don't want to give up reading as you have challenges.
Well, thank you, Amy. Our time is up, but everyone should check out her books, especially in audio. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this session of Audiobook Week on Every Library Live. We hope you enjoyed the behind the scenes look at the people and processes that make audiobooks such a powerful part of today's reading culture. And if you missed any section or want to revisit your favorites, you can catch them all on Every Library's Facebook and YouTube on demand anytime. And stay with us all week and keep listening at your library. Thank you, Amy.